Hi everybody, we are back for part 2 of the Zazor versus Razorine challenge. If you've watched part 1, I'm assuming you have. You saw the shave with the Razorine. Well, today we've got comparable amount of beard growth, and we're going to go ahead and shave that using, this time, utilizing the Zazor. I am going to have the Razorine nearby just to maybe do a comparison of how it feels in the hand. We do have a brand new Astra blade, just like we used in the Razorine on the first shave. We're utilizing the same brush, same cream, same splash, everything else as much as possible, everything identical, and comparing this shave to the Razorine shave. So let me go ahead and lather up some of that Nivea. All right. I did utilize the same preparation procedure. I'm not fresh out of the shower, but I did do a thorough face washing. Oops. Get a little bit more thicker lather going. Thorough face washing, kept the face wet for about a good 5 to 10 minutes. Re-wetting it periodically. All right. When we're all through with the shave, I'll give some of my sort of conclusions, closing comments, a few bullet points about each razor, how they performed, pros and cons that I see with each one comparatively. I'm going to do my typical sequence, north to south, south to north, and then a little bit of call it east to west, I guess, if you will, and then some touch up. Checking at each pass to see how we did. As I mentioned before, I have shaved with the Zazor probably a good 10-12 times, and I have an idea what this shave's going to turn out, how this shave's going to turn out. And I don't expect it to be much different, the end result, from the Razorine, although I did get a little bit of irritation and some weepers with the Razorine. I'm going to say, after thinking about it, I am using the same blade here for a head-to-head comparison, but honestly, that Astra blade may not be the blade of choice for the Razorine, and probably getting a better blade would have avoided those weepers and the irritation. So, okay. Here we are with the Zazor. Go ahead with my first pass. Now I am holding it like this. I don't think I would have gotten away with that kind of gripping pattern with the Razorine. I think I started with it on the previous video, and I find myself really clamping hard because it felt like it wanted to either slip out of my hands, and the weight of the head seemed to make it want to kind of get out of my control. So I could definitely notice that I have a much easier time holding it. At least in this grip position. I tend to kind of use a few grips with the Zazor, kind of change it up as I go. It just sort of, one grip seems to feel more naturally than another for getting control. getting the cheeks, especially on the first pass, going mostly with the grain, north to south. I seem to like to hold it like this. I seem to get a little more speed in doing that, and don't need much precision. For more detailed areas, I'll probably choke up on it. Okay, let's go ahead and do the other cheek now. Also, I can grip it back here and still not have any trouble handling that weight. For some reason, that feels more naturally to me, doing the right cheek with the right hand, is to, you know, come back on the handle a little more and get a little more reach. I did just go over those areas that gave me some weepers on the first pass with the Razorine. You can still see there's a little bit of a scab on there, and my first pass with the Zazor, even with that new Astra blade, didn't seem to irritate it. And again, I'm not saying that as a knock on the Razorine. I think it's just probably not the appropriate blade. But for me, this has been the appropriate blade for the Zazor. So let me grab the Razorine. Yeah, for me to grab it this far, yeah, I could do it, but while also trying to keep the angle steady, put a little bit of pressure on the face, and holding it back here, I just don't think I'd feel too comfortable. I'd be worried that I may inadvertently move it laterally, and I guess probably couldn't slice yourself even if you did that, but it does feel a little bit awkward. So we shall continue. So now for doing over here, the whiskers here are a little more dense, so I'll do a couple more different hand positions. Use the right hand for getting here and over, and then I'm going to switch to the left hand for the other side. Definitely see a little bit more ease in maneuvering this while going around the contour of the chin, just because it's lighter. And it's very easy for me to just twirl it in the hand without really having to worry about the weight wanting to tip over. Okay, let me rinse off. We'll see how we did on our first pass. You have comparable to what the Razorine did on the first north to south pass, and which is, in my experience, typical of what I get with just about any kind of safety razor, whether it's single edge, double edge, so forth and so on. I definitely, as I stated before, if I'm using an open blade like a traditional shavette or straight razor, at first pass, I really get a lot closer on the first pass. But this is typical of what I get with a safety razor. So. Okay, lather up for the second pass. Again, you'll notice, just as I did on the Razorine shave, I don't go quite as thick with the leather on the second pass. I really don't find it to be necessary. All right, so for our second pass, I'm going to go predominantly south to north. Start with the right hand, and this is the grip I'm going with. I could even come back here with it, and that starts to feel awkward. Even when you go back this far with this position, even the Zazor's head seems to be a little bit unwieldy. So stick with my typical hold grip. Over here I did choke back a little bit just to get a little more reach. The one thing I really do like about this type of razor, this genre of razor, both the Razorine and the Zazor, is it's so easy when you hold it like this to just tilt it, twist it a little bit and find that angle where the blade just perfectly engages your face. I think that's one of the advantages of this type of razor. Oops. In the mirror here. Again, in this area, I don't go directly against the grain. If anything, do a little bit of across the grain, but mostly with it. I just get too much irritation if I try anything else. We give a rinse. Okay, let's give a feel around. Okay. As usual, by the second pass, over on this side, I'm baby smooth. I kind of come up this way by the left sideburn. I can feel a little bit, so I'm going to touch up there. I'm actually a little closer than I typically am on the right side, but if I start moving my fingers right to left, that's against the grain. I can feel something mostly here and just maybe a tiny bit on the cheek. All right, and the neck is typical after 2 passes. Okay, so we'll just hit the areas that need it. I know I called it a 3-pass. I don't really do a complete full 3 passes if I don't need it everywhere. I'll do a little bit on the neck just gently and another south-north. Okay. Okay, let's go ahead and finish up over here. Do have a slight little weeper right here. That's a little mole that I have that sometimes gets attacked by the blade. Okay, and this is the trickiest part for me, going like sideways. Okay, we will rinse off and check it out. Okay, we're smooth, we're smooth. We're about as smooth as I like to take it around here as well as on the neck. So we're going to dry off and apply our splash and see how we do. A second. Okay. Again, we're going with the Barbasol. It's a mentholated splash here with what I find to be a balanced amount of alcohol, especially for doing a test shave like this. All right. Getting a little something around here. Oddly enough, I'm not really feeling anything on this little tiny weeper here, which is strange. Feeling that menthol now. Might have had a little bit of a tiny sting over here, but nothing crazy. And where those other weepers were on the last shave, it didn't seem to open up and bleed again. So that kind of concludes the shave here. Again, shave number 1 was the Razorine. Shave number 2 was the Zazor. And I'll see you in a minute to do some closing comments. Hey folks, here we are back in my living room where we started this little adventure. And again, we're comparing the Razorine, which is made in Italy, to the Zazor, which is made in Turkey. I'd like to give maybe some closing comments, some observations, maybe summarize what I've learned in this little process. To my knowledge, just about the products, the Razorine, I believe, was released for sale sometime in 2018. The Zazor was made available for sale probably as far back as 2013. It was not available outside of Turkey until 2019, and that is only through one particular vendor, which I'll put in the notes. It's called Razor US. The US does not stand for United States. It stands for something else because they're based in Turkey. Anyhow, so the Razorine versus the Zazor, I'm going to say that the end result, the shave that you get from them, pretty much equal. I did have a little more weepers and irritation with the Razorine, but the blade I used may not have been the most appropriate for it. And that was my first shave with it. I think it would be appropriate to try different blades in it. And I really truly believe that the right blade would have prevented all of that. Been using the Astra blades and the Zazor, which I've only tried 2 or 3 blades, so I should probably try a few in there. Maybe I'll get better results than the Zazor also, but I really would think it would be unfair to criticize the Razorine for those, the little bit of additional weeper and irritation. So, pound for pound, as far as the end result shave that you'll get, you can get just as good a shave with one as you can with the other. Okay. Some feedback that others have commented on the Razorine. There isn't too much out there about the Zazor. That's why I'm really addressing the feedback, some of the negative criticism on the Razorine, because there really isn't too much in social media of people giving a full review of the Zazor. But the criticism I've heard of the Razorine, of course, we've mentioned the finish being a glossy, shiny buff finish. People have said that they've had trouble gripping it. That's one piece of negative feedback. Another one is regarding blade loading being somewhat tedious. And I've found both of those issues to be not all that bad. I really didn't find too much of an issue, getting enough friction to grip this, even with the glossy finish. The Zazor it's an anodized aluminum product, so it's more of a matte finish. And this is shiny, but I can't say the finish really played into my ability to grip it. The issue with the blade loading, I'll definitely say the Zazor is way easier to load. It's so much simpler to pop this off, put a blade in, and pop it on. Here you've got 3 parts. You have to separate the thumb screw, the cap, head, place the blade on the cap, insert it into the head, screw it down, and then even when you do all those steps, there tends to be, at least in my case, a need to, let's see if I can even capture it here, the resolution of this video, but showed up better on the phone, but there's a fair bit of rotation back and forth with this cap relative to the head, and it does require a fair bit of, I shouldn't say fair bit, it requires some effort to ensure the blade is lined up before you fully secure the thumb screw. Once you fully secure the thumb screw, it's fine. So I didn't have any issue with the, even with wet hands, even with a little bit of shave cream on my hands, I didn't have any issue with it, say, slipping out of my hand. And the blade loading, although a little bit more tedious, somewhat more tedious than the Zazor, I didn't find it to be insurmountable or any kind of deal breaker. What I did find, in case you didn't notice, is that the weight distribution on the Razorine, to me, is something that is not terribly favorable. I find the weight distribution, the overall weight is a lot more, but more importantly, the weight distribution on the Razor. And honestly, I think if that issue were to be revised and or resolved on the Razorine, I don't think anybody will be complaining about the ability to grip it, because it's the fact that it's so heavy that requires someone to get a heavy, and especially head heavy weight distribution, requires someone to have considerably better hold on it to get control. Um, the Zazor is quite easy. I mean, I'm just barely holding on to it, and it balances. I can hold it, just rest it on my finger without gripping it, and it just balances. So there's not a ton of weight here. It's reasonably thin aluminum. There's a steel, chrome-plated steel cap on it. There's not a ton of head heaviness to it. I'm just pinching it lightly here and holding it up. So comparing the two, I would say that the Zazor is much easier to blade load. The Zazor, although you can get just as good of a shave with either, the Zazor is a lot easier for me to use because I can have a variety of different grips without worrying about the head heaviness making it hard to handle, that kind of thing. Where the Razorine, I think I really have to choke up on it in some cases. Keep my thumb on the back and do something like that. Choke up on it like this for the south to north pass. So I also feel that not just the weight distribution, but the overall weight of it makes it a little easier to do, detailed areas where, the contour of the chin, and I have to be very careful up here. This is a very sensitive area of my skin. So I do feel I have a better control with the weight and the weight distribution of the Zazor in comparison to the Razorine. So you probably haven't heard too many people specifically complain about the Razorine's head heaviness until now, or until Dave's video. I think he mentioned it. That's because there really hasn't been much else in the market to compare it to. But comparing it side by side with another product that has a similar form factor, I really find that to be a detracting feature. So I guess the another question we'll go over is would be a predicted durability lifespan of each one. I think both of these products, if cared for and stored properly, would go literally decades before anything would wear out on them. Now, if you're starting to talk about dropping something or smacking it up against something, I'd say the Razorine, the solid brass, is going to be a little more durable. The Zazor, take the plate off just to show. Safety bars, this is all solid aluminum. It's fairly thin. And for functionality, that doesn't really matter. But if I were to, I guess, dropping it, it's probably going to fall this way and land on this. But if I were to be holding it and swing it and smack it into something, I could see one of these bending. And if you know anything about aluminum, if it bends, bending it back, you're probably going to break it. So I guess I would have to give a little bit of a durability from user error and dropping it. I'd have to give that to the Razorine. Is most likely going to hold up a little better. There's really no wearable parts on the Zazor, although I could see these little studs here, the surface that bears up against the little clip, maybe getting worn a little bit, and the clip may not hold the blade as tightly. I think that would take an ungodly number of uses for that to happen. But if it did, I think you can probably, with the pliers, you could probably squeeze this plate in such a way, deform it a little bit to where that fit becomes tighter. I certainly wouldn't do that unless it was absolutely necessary, because go a little too far, it might be too tight. But honestly, I see it being thousands of shaves before that would ever become an issue. So that's about it. Looks wise, I'm going to give it to I should keep it in my left hand to be consistent. Looks wise, I'm going to say I give it to the Razorine. There's certainly nothing wrong with the look of the Zazor. It's certainly not unattractive, but this is a little more pretty, a little more sexy, if you will. So I guess that begs the final question: which one is quote unquote better? And just like anything in the wet shaving community, in the wet shaving industry, the answer is going to be it depends. Depends on the user, depends on the user's preferences, the user's skills, what the intended use is. Um, as you know, we all have different reasons for selecting the products that we buy. It's not always necessarily the how well it does its job. Sometimes it's who makes it, where does it come from, what's it made out of, and how does it look. You know, these look really sexy and really nice in a shave of the day photo. You know, behind all your software and so forth and so on. This doesn't look bad either, but this looks nicer. There's a coolness factor of having something that's made out of solid brass too. I certainly think that's a factor that will drive some people toward the Razorine. We'll talk briefly about cost. The original Razorine, in the U.S. at least, goes for about the brass version goes for about $40 retail. The chrome-plated version of it, of the original classic Razorine, goes for another $10 more, $50. And then the Razorine Premium, which is a revised version, is an additional $10. And then, of course, the chrome version of that's $10 more. So you're looking at anywhere between $40 to $70, depending on which version you go with. Zazor, on the other hand, believe it or not, it retails for just under $6. It's only available from a Turkish vendor, so purchasing just one of them would set you back $6 and then probably another $6 in freight if you're located in the U.S. like I am. So it's a little more economy of scale to purchase it with purchase a couple of them, or purchase it and get some other items from that vendor. And the shipping will probably stay the same, and you know, and get a better deal that way. I actually purchased, believe it or not, 5 of these. One of each color that was available at the time. I got that and a whole bunch of software and 3 packs of blades and everything delivered to my house, DHL express shipping for $45. So for the price of one of these, with sales tax, without even taking shipping into consideration, I got 5 of these and a few other things too. So if you're looking dollar for dollar, you're not going to beat the Zazor. But as far as which one's better, it really depends on your needs. And if you're, you know, if it's important to you, if you like having a handmade, you know, somewhat handmade, there's some automation involved, but a small batch, artisan made, Italian product, you know, you may lean toward the Razorine. I would say if you're somebody who is considering this genre or type or form factor of razor to see if it's a solution for you, you may want to consider the Zazor because it's a much smaller investment. If you turn out to not like it, you haven't spent between $40 and $70 for it. You've spent anywhere from 12 to 15, depending on where you're located. So, for me personally, I'm going to say I would lean toward the Zazor of the two, not because I have a problem with the Razorine, but because, once again, getting back at that weight distribution, I do find that I don't use this form factor of razor terribly often. I usually use straights or shavettes. And if I'm going to grab for one once in a blue moon, I'm going to grab for the one that is a little easier to use, a little easier to get that precision work, a little more flexible in terms of how many grips I could use on it and still control it without that head wanting to tilt down on me. So for me, I would say the Zazor is a more appropriate product. But for you, it depends on your needs.
anyhow, I've rambled on long enough. Feel free to leave a comment in the comment section. And thanks for watching.